And we're live.
You are.
Uh, we are live. Welcome to the Special Ones Serie A hangout. I'm here with Adam Digby. Adam Digby writes for 442, Sport 360, Being Sport. Has written Juventus, A History in Black and White. How you doing today, Adam?
I'm good, Harold. Happy birthday. How are you?
I'm good, man. The sun is shining. I have a flat tire, but I'm not worried about that. And I'm another year older, but I'm doing well. We also have Sam Lewis, writes for Football Italia, SB Nation. It's our resident Milan supporter. And also, Sam is shaping today's youth in England. How you doing today, man?
Oh, thank you. I'm very glad to hear the wonderful introduction. I'm great. Tell me, is the 29 birthday candles or 31 on the cake today?
Oh wow!
Oh,
I should have never told you how old I am.
but
That was all right. That's pretty solid. I can't be too mad about that one. That was
Well
solid.
played.
I bow to you, sir.
That's fine. That's fine. It's the only victory I'm going to have all podcast, so I'm just going to take it as it goes.
Last but not least, we have our Roma fella. We got Greg Cimilluca, founder of the Magic Cast, AS Roma podcast, and we missed out last week, unfortunately, due to work obligations, but we got him in the building today. How you doing, Greg?
Yes, I'm very excited to be here. Always happy when I get invitations to be on the special ones.
Awesome, awesome. So, I mean, we're gonna just jump right into it. We can talk a little bit about last week. Obviously,
Do we have to?
Juventus. Yeah, we do have to. Unfortunately, we do have to. Obviously, Juventus took a loss to Udinese, dominating the game, but hit on the break and fell 1-0. Fiorentina beat Milan. Roma came out with a 1-1 draw. So how are we feeling after the first week? Or is there anything to take from this, really? We'll start with you, Greg. You had the best result out of all of us. How are you feeling about the first week?
It's funny that you call it the best, and I guess you have to in the sense that we came away with points when the others didn't. But when I look at the result and the way that the game was played, I look at a lot of results of last year, which were not positive. All the consecutive run of draws and the points lost, and this game just reached to that same kind of performance. And I have grave concerns for this season, where that Roma playing the Garcia way is really not going to be able to make the adjustments. They sat back, and teams that sat back, Roma would have very little to do against defenses that put many players in the box, and it's all down to the same style of play. They haven't adjusted. He hasn't adjusted as a coach, and therefore, why should the results be any different? So, although we came away with a point, I am not too comfortable with how that puts Roma to start off the season.
Yeah, yeah. Sam, you boys fell 2-0 to Fiorentina. What can we take from that one? You got your big signing in Kuchka.
Yay! Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, why? I think you can take it in two ways. I think if you're a very negative Milan fan, I think I'm sort of on the fence here. You can go, well, this is exactly what the problem is. The midfield didn't look great. The defense once again looked a little bit shaky. But you can also look at it on the other way. This is Mihailovic's first game. There's obviously going to be growing pains, and obviously the red card really did change a lot of stuff. Having to take Honda out really did affect the team and the way that it was going to be shaped up. When you're playing in like that 4-4-2 diamond, that guy at the tip is really important for how the flow is going to be. I also think that I'm not alone in the fact that we all spoke about Fiorentina last week, and we all we weren't really very high on them. But I think by the looks of, if we can take the way that they looked against Milan last weekend, I think we can actually all say we kind of underestimated them a little bit. They actually looked really, really good, really vibrant, good going forward, and they look quite dangerous against Milan. Obviously, we'll see whether that's just Milan being Milan or whether they're going to do that over the next couple of weeks. But I think, yeah, it was a bit disappointing, and it was clear that if it wasn't already obvious that the midfield still needs a really big investment, something that I don't think Kuchka is going to improve in any great degree at all. I think we'll see how the season goes. I expect a better result this week, but I don't know. First games are always tricky to judge.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'll toss it to Adam for the Juve perspective. Obviously, losing at home to Udinese is never something you want to start out the season with. But how do you feel about how do you feel about it afterwards? How do you feel about it right now, Adam?
To be honest, the same as I did at full time. It's like you look at the injuries and the players who just aren't there yet, and it's almost to be expected. I mean, it's Udinese's Champions League final, isn't it? Travelling to Turin, it's a game they've had all summer to prepare for. Juve looking to peak in March, April, May. They had no midfield to speak of, pretty much like Milan, and that's what you're going to get. You see Quadrado came since then, Alexandro's arrived. There's plenty of reasons to be positive. I'll wait and hold judgment.
Party time in for Alexandro.
Yeah, because I don't know. I just don't see it as anything to worry about. To be honest, I don't know. It's the same with all the games. It's like, what do you read into one game, man? We've got 2 games and then we've got an international break. There's plenty of time to get it right. The transfer window's not closed yet. It's still summer, really, isn't it? And the Juve game in particular, out of the 3 of us, the Juve game had a real pre-season friendly air to it. It didn't feel like a competitive game. It was just there, and they had to play it and get it out of the way, and now it's done. The season can start properly, I think.
Yeah, it really. Obviously, you don't want to throw away games, but it almost felt like a throwaway match. I hate losing, but especially in that fashion when you dominate the game and you have the chances, you don't take them. I mean, but it did have the weird air of like, has the season really started? Does this one count?
Yeah, it was really, really strange.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the transfer window obviously has not closed. Do you guys, and we'll start with Sam here, do you guys think that your teams will make any more moves? Obviously, Milan's just brought in Mario Balotelli. That's going to be some fireworks in the Milan camp. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But you guys, will your teams make any more moves? And what would you like to see? We'll go with reality, and then what you really want.
Well, with Milan, I think it's always hard to separate reality from fiction, considering that fiction actually does seem some really positive, and then reality is just depressing as it gets. So Milan have the same thing. It gets to like the 23rd, the 24th of August, and then Galliani does that thing where he's like, there is no more purchases, there is no more market, and then the manager always like corroborates this, and then 3 days later we have like a player that comes in on the 29th or the 30th or whatever, and that's happened again. Mihailovic, the Kuchka thing took everybody by surprise. I didn't expect him. Obviously, we've been linked to him for since 2011, sort of on and off. And it was just one of those that I felt that if Milan wanted him, they could have really fired the deal at any point and said, okay, we'll take him now. And clearly that's what they did. I think it was Galliani getting frustrated with the Soriano thing. It's clear that Milan don't want to pay Sampdoria's tag for him, at least at this point. I do actually expect another signing before the end of the transfer window. Not simply because of how the window's gone thus far, simply because that's just what happens with Milan. It just seems to be what goes on. And for whoever that player might be, I don't have any guesses whatsoever. They've been talking to a lot of midfielders, or a lot of their agents of midfielders, and it's clear that they're going for that. I would like to see a genuine creative midfielder be brought in. They've been linked to sort of Witsel. I can't see us spending 30 million now, not in the last 4 days, unless something remote, just ridiculous happens. I could see like a loan with an option to buy for someone like, I saw Lamela, and I think that makes a lot of sense, both for obviously what Milan need in general, but I think it seems the sort of deal that Milan would make, simply because they've been linked to him for a while. They were actually on par with Roma trying to get him from Argentina when that first happened in sort of 2011. They were linked to him actually 6 months into his Spurs career, and I think it's just been on and off. It just seems like the sort of move that they would try and make, considering Spurs are still trying to offload some of the players that they brought in after the Bale deal. I would like to see a trequartista brought in, because I think that's what the midfield really does need to actually make the investments up front work. But we'll see. I do expect a move, but honest to God, knowing Galliani, I haven't got a clue. I didn't expect Kuchka, and nobody expected Balotelli.
Yeah. Now, Greg, how do you feel about you guys' transfer dealings so far, and is there anything else in the pipeline? We've just seen, I guess, Wani Turbe is gone out to Genoa, and I'm not sure if that one's permanent or on loan. But how are you feeling about it, and what are your thoughts on the future?
Just looking at the moves thus far, I mean, on paper, getting a guy like Dzeko is very good. I wasn't super thrilled at the initial numbers, but once the contract and official numbers came out, I felt a little bit better about it. I still think it's a lot from a salary perspective when you're looking at him in the last year of that contract and what he's going to be able to do. I mean, not every player can be like a Del Piero or a Totti and still be very prolific in their, as the 30s start, reaching that mid-range and up. But I think he'll be 34 maybe around the end of the contract. So we'll see how that plays out. But, he's a big-time player that's played in big-time games. So from that perspective, I really like it. Strategically, I'm a bit concerned because you look at everybody that Roma has thrown in those places, and the result hasn't been great. And it's got nothing to do with the players. There's a lot of Roma fans that are very down on Doumbia, and he wasn't quite fit when he joined, which is number one. Number two, the system, the way they're playing, it's just not working for that kind of a player. So that was my biggest opposition to it was we've had players like this that have quality, and it really hasn't mattered very much to the team. I do think there's a step up to Edmund. We'll see what he can do. I think he fit in right away with his first game, so that was nice. In the preseason, and was quasi okay in the regular season opener. Got somebody on the left flank which they needed. I still think they need help on the right. But to really kind of get inside Sabatini's head, when you look at Iturbe, Ibarbo, and Laic have all been rumored to be going somewhere. If we're getting rid of all these players, I surely hope that they're planning on backfilling at least one or two of them because we're going to be very, very thin up top. Losing Strootman is obviously a huge blow for the second straight season, technically third straight season. So backfilling him, I think, is important. It's not particularly great, even though their team isn't necessarily bad. But it just seems like there's just so many questions if we're putting so many players out for option and very little in terms of rumors on players coming back. So much like Sam said, the last few days here I think are going to be pretty wild for Rome as well.
Yeah, and just to touch on that Strootman thing, that's awful. Obviously I do hate Roma from the core of my heart. I love you, Greg, but I hate your team. But I hate to see a player like that with his obvious quality, and even if he wasn't a great player, had their career just ruined by injury. You really would have to worry about it long term because it looks like this knee injury it's recurred like 2 or 3 times now. And you really got to look at it as his health as a player, as a person. Those things can affect you down the line. Like he might not even be able to walk well when he's older. But I really pray that this next surgery, I think he's got to get 2 of them or something.
I don't even know. It's so complicated. And when you look at Garcia's first year and take a high level view of when the team was doing well and when they started to slip a little bit. There's a bit of an overlap as to when we lost Strootman, and I think he was a bit of that glue that helped connect the offense, the midfield to the strikers, and in a far better way, in my opinion, than Pjanic ever has. Even though that wasn't his main role, because he still came back and was tremendous on defensive coverage as well. But he got forward, quite well, and I think that really helped. And he's just been a huge piece of the team that's been missing.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, honestly, you'd have to be kind of sick to your stomach as a Roma fan thinking about a midfield 3 of a healthy Pjanic, Nainggolan, and Strootman. That's one that rivals pretty much any midfield in Europe, honestly.
Yeah, you could have said sick to your stomach just at ending at being a Roma fan, period. But yes, that certainly ups the ante on the regurgitation factor.
Yeah, no, we'll go to Juventus. Already made a ton of moves this summer. Obviously, a team in heavy transition. We talked about it in the last hangout. Tevez out, Vidal out, Pirlo out, and now we've got all these players coming in. We've got most recently Alexandru coming in at left back from Porto. Gotta love him. We've got Juan Cuadrado coming in on loan from Chelsea on a 1.5 million euro loan. Chelsea just basically throwing him to us. And more moves rumored to be either one or both of Axel Witsel and or Julian Draxler from Schalke. Now, Adam, which one do you think will actually end up if either of them? And how do you think that affects Juve as a whole?
For which one, I really don't know. The noise about Julian Draxler seems to be a little bit louder, but you would say Witsel seems a little bit more like the kind of player that Marotta would go for. And also, I suppose, more like a player that suits with Allegri, because although he plays with a trequartista, it's always been like a Vidal or a Kevin Prince Boateng, or you've got to go all the way back to Cagliari when it was Kosu to find a player that's like a genuine playmaker type guy. And Draxler's more of a winger anyway than a genuine number 10, and there's already like Pereira and Cuadrado able to play that role. So I don't know. It's difficult, that one. I really do think there's going to have to be a midfielder, because, like we saw last week, you can't go into a game where you're relying on Simone Panuin. The guy's great. He's a reliable hand. He's Allegri speak for game over, isn't he? He comes on with 10 minutes to go when you 2-0 up, and then call it a game. The ref might as well blow the whistle. But to rely on him for 90 minutes to expect to create anything at all with him in midfield is a bit of a stretch. I think the only games where he's played 90 minutes in a meaningful match have been at full back. It's a little bit more difficult, to be honest. I think someone will arrive. I'm not that concerned, as you say. With Sandro and Cuadrado, the squad is a lot better. To be honest, I'm a lot more interested in the situations with the other two guys, especially with Roma. And I wanted to ask Greg how he feels with seeing Dzeko starting last week, because to me, like a front three with Dzeko, Salah, and either Falque or Lajic or whoever they managed to keep hold of looks really, really good. But then you get a draw against Hellas. Dzeko didn't score the goal. You've got Totti sat there as an unused substitute. To me, as an outsider, that's not going to last very long before Totti and the fans start asking for Totti to play. And Rudy Garcia really doesn't have the stroke to keep him on the bench.
Yeah, I'm glad this point kind of came up, because, and I probably should have gone over when we talked about the game earlier, but you're either down a goal or eventually tied. It's late in the game, and the team is suffering for the way it's playing, and certainly class and creativity would help at least give them an opportunity to kind of change the flow of the game. And he puts on Ibarbo, who is not been has shown any effectiveness playing for Roma. Number one, number two, he's kind of a carbon copy of the player that he was replacing. So it's that same, you're expecting different results from doing the same thing over and over again, and it's incredibly frustrating. And forget that it's Totti, forget like all of that. Just strategically, tactically, when you're looking at your team, that's where the changes need to happen. Personnel, formations. I think people get too tied up in those things, and I've said this ad nauseum on Twitter. So I apologize for those of you that are watching this and listening to this that have also seen me post it there. But the how you play is so much more important than what your form is and who's out there. And I think with lesser players, if they change the way they played, they may be able to break out of whatever this funk is that they're in, where scoring has all of a sudden dried up. So I agree with you that those front lines should be formidable, but as we've seen over the last year plus, they haven't been. So we'll see. I mean, I hope somebody is out there, knocking him on the head, saying, "Hey, you know what? Maybe this just isn't working," and they try something different.
He's got to see that, right? You see, that's not just me. It's like that's 2 years now.
Change happened. That's the question I keep coming. It's not just this past game, right? It's most of last year and the back end of his first year.
Yeah. Do you think Rudy Garcia is the man for Roma in the long term?
That depends on Rudy Garcia. I think he's got a lot of the personality that is required to succeed in Rome. But at the same point in time, if he doesn't start making adjustments and figuring out how to beat teams, then no.
Seems pretty important for a manager, doesn't it? He needs to figure out how to beat the other team.
Yeah,
It's like number one
Aaron,
priority, really.
Aaron,
the requirement
can you
hasn't
imagine?
figured out.
Can you imagine being stuck with a manager who's too stubborn to change formation and change which players he's playing?
That's weird. I've never had that experience. If it has, it's so far in the past I can barely remember it.
Sam, can you remember being stuck with a manager? Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had that. I don't think I've ever had that experience to my knowledge.
Yeah,
all the coaches that coach my team are wonderfully versatile.
Yeah, I remember a game last year where they, I think it was halfway through the game they switched to a 4-2-3-1 from the 4-3-3, but their style of play was exactly the same, and that's where I just put my head in my hands and start shaking, because if you're playing the same way, if your wingers are destined to take 1-on-4 every single time, I like to use the Barcelona example because it's a really a great one, where you look at their front three right now, Neymar, Messi, and Suarez, who individually can take on probably 1-on-4 and be successful. But the reason why they are successful is because they look for each other first, and they know how to play with each other, and that's what makes them dangerous. Our guys, who are far less the class that those players are, still think that they can do the 1-on-4, and then after that fails, if they haven't already lost the ball, then try to pass the ball, and generally their passes are terrible. So that is the reason why look at the goal we scored. Florenzi shot from like 9 miles away, and the goalie for some reason wanted to win. We got very lucky. We should have been dropping 3 points just like Juve and Milan as well.
That's the thing. Isn't 4-2-3-1 like the most obvious solution? Like Totti in the hole, Solar on the left, maybe a Pjanic or Gervinho on the right. De Rossi and Nainggolan in the middle. Isn't that doesn't that just make sense? Why is that not explanation?
I don't understand it, because it seems so obvious, and we talked about it last week. Like, some of these fixes seem so obvious. Like, Totti obviously is not going to be the man for you as your lone striker, but stick him right in behind Dzeko and put pace around him, put creativity around him, let him do what he does best, to drop into space, find those pockets of space, and spray the ball around. Why wouldn't you do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think, to me, I think the only thing I could say to that is you're still playing the same way, aren't you? You're replacing one of your midfield three with Totti, and you're still playing the same two wingers. To me, they need to do something completely different. To me, 4-2-3-1 is still too similar to what they've been doing, and you're going to run those same problems.
I was asked.
To me,
yeah, no, but you're right, though. You're absolutely right, and that was the point I was making earlier. And I was asked this question earlier, and I look at the players that they have, and I think there's not a great dissimilarity to the 2006 World Cup team. So I would love to see them do a 4-4-1-1, which is, largely the kind of, formation they rolled out, with Totti sitting behind Luca Toni, but in this case it would be Dzeko, who has a lot more mobility than Luca Toni, but, could be played as a similar target man up front. You've got speed and a responsibility on the wings, because some of these wingers are also midfielders. They can easily, adapt into that Camoranesi type role that he played, and you got plenty of Grinta back there. Oh yeah.
Hey, that's our word, sir.
What's that?
I'm just kidding. I said that's our word, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. Toughness. How's that? Spirit. I'll borrow from Sam now, and I'll say plenty of Gattuso-like players. So I think it would really benefit them, and but we'll see. I don't know. He seems pretty stubborn.
Yeah. Now, speaking of stubborn, we'll throw it back over to the black and red side. Mario Balotelli has landed back in Milano. A lot of pundits are calling this his last chance. I believe Galliani said it's his last chance. But what do we think? Is this one gonna? How do you think this is gonna play out? It seems as if Mihajlovic has specifically requested Balotelli, which is number one, a good sign when the manager actually wants the player. And he's coming back home. We know Mario loves Milan. We know he loves Italy, even though he's had some rough treatment there. But he loves home. He's got that atmosphere in Milano where they're a little bit removed from the public eye. The training facility is a little bit out there. He's not going to have hundreds of reporters in his face every day. Apparently, there's also a behavioral clause, inserted in his deal. But he's back home. How do you feel about it, and how do you think it'll play out?
I'm a fan. I mean, it's as far as Milan are concerned. I love the idea that they sold him for 16 million and they've essentially been giving him back a year later without haven't even got to pay like the full go of his wages. So that's a wonderful thing.
It's called the Alessandro Maxi plan.
I don't need to address that directly. Okay. I wish him well at West Ham. That's all I'm going to say.
Where Balotelli will be in 6 months.
Now, at least 9. At least give him 9, right? Just enough to get someone pregnant, and then that's it. I think it's a win. It's a win-win for Milan. It's they haven't bought him. They're not gonna, they don't have to reimburse him. They don't have to pay for it at the end of the deal if it doesn't work out. It's a great situation for Milan to be in. In that perspective, this is his last chance as far as a big club goes. I mean, if this doesn't work out, he's doing that whole Galatasaray to China to Dubai sort of end of career thing that it should really be happening in 10 years, not when he's 25. If this doesn't work out, that's really where Lefty's career goes. It doesn't matter if Mino Raiola is his agent or not. No one's going to buy him. And I think Milan are the best place for him out of any of the big clubs. Really, he was very productive there over the last couple of years. 30 goals in 54 games is nothing to shake a stick at, man. You can talk about he scored penalties, but they're still goals, mate. They're still goals, and he had to score them. If it works out, great. I love the guy. I hope it works out. I think Milan are best suited for him. You notice over the 18 months he spent at Milan, there was very little trouble. You're right with the training ground situation. It is very removed. Italy, close to his family. It works out well. Another factor in it is that Balotelli does appear to have genuinely changed as a person. And I've only put that in quote marks because I've heard it before. I heard it when he went to City. I heard it when he came to Milan and all that sort of bits and bobs. But this time, the death of his father, the willingness to come back to Italy to play towards Euro 2016, these are all factors. Him turning 25 and recognising that. If you read the Gazzetta interview, it's very introspective. It's not as filled with the cliches that you expect. He even openly talks about celebrating. There's lots of different things that we really saw a different side to Balotelli. And yeah, as you said, Mihajlovic actually wanting him and meeting him, looking him in the eye and, saying, I'm okay with his production. If he comes here and works, then I have absolutely no problem with it. I hope that he does. And if it works out, he could be a very productive third striker. I like the possibilities here for Milan, and I love the guy. I love the guy's story. I love the guy's narrative, and I do hope it works out.
Yeah, my love for Balotelli is obviously well known on Twitter. So I like the move for Milan for Balotelli, for Italy, honestly. Milan is where he's produced some of his best best form. And I think he has a chance. I think he's got a chance to really kind of rediscover his love for the game, his love for life, and be happy. And a happy Balotelli is a productive Balotelli, in my opinion. Now the question is, where's he going to play? Is he going to be that third striker? Is he going to play in the hole behind Baca and Luis Adriano? Can he play there? What are you thinking? Where's he going to fit tactically for this side?
I think at the start he's gonna play primarily as the backup. We're talking about a guy who hasn't actually played meaningful football for a very significant period of time, especially not starting for a team for a significant period of time either. I don't think Balotelli quite has the collection of skills that you'd want in that whole role. I think it works on FIFA, but I mean, this is also a guy who would have to track back. He would have to be involved in the midfield. And frankly, I remember when he was playing for Man City, and actually Gary Neville said something that I agreed with, which is why I remember it, because it happens very rarely. And he said, why would you let him, when he got sent off against Arsenal, he said, why would you even let him tackle? If you were a coach of Balotelli, you would just say, never tackle ever. Press, never stick your foot out. Never going to happen. I wholeheartedly agree with that because he's a red card risk. But if you put him in the hole, he has to. He has to press, he has to get involved, and that's just not a position I ever want to see him in. When you add that to the fact that he's not, even at his best, he's not exactly a hard-working football player, and he's not someone that I would, the midfield around him isn't good enough to make that work either. So in an ideal world, I'm saying he's probably, at the moment, considering Luis Adriano and Baca do actually seem to have a decent rapport at the moment, I say he's third choice in a midfield too. But if he comes on and he plays well, it could be Balotelli and Baca up front with another midfielder in behind. That's what I envision envision it personally. I can't see the Balotelli Adriano Bacca trio unless there's something else done tactically there personally. But we'll see. We'll see what Mihajlovic has for him.
Yeah. Now you guys, Milan takes on Empoli tomorrow. How are you feeling about that one? I believe it's at home for Milan.
It is, yeah.
It is. Yeah. How are you feeling about this matchup?
They have to win. I know it sounds really strange to say that already 2 games in, but they have to win. Coming off that Fiorentina loss was definitely disappointing. Obviously, there was references to Berlusconi already being upset. Well, stop putting a plug in the transfer window, mate, and then they wouldn't lose to Fiorentina. But anyway, putting that to one side, this is a team that Milan should be putting away if they're expected to make Champions League progress. You can't lose 2 games and go in the derby and expect it to be okay. That's a situation, that's a game that they might not win, obviously, because Inter are a genuinely decent side. And you don't want to start Serie A season with 3 straight losses or 3 straight negative performances. Empoli have lost their coach, they've lost a couple of their really key players, and I think it's a great opportunity for Milan to actually build some chemistry, start playing the way that they want to. Obviously, they have to dominate the game as well. This can't just be a 1-0 header from a corner. It has to be a positive game as well for Mihajlovic, really, to see what works well for him. I expect them to win because, at the end of the day, it's fucking Empoli, man. Like, they have to beat them. But I think for Mihajlovic, it's a really important game for them to get right as well. For him to work out that some of the kinks in midfield would be a great opportunity for them this weekend as well. So I feel optimistic about it despite last week's result, but it's Milan, so anything could happen.
Yeah. Now the biggest name matchup of this weekend is obviously Roma taking on Juventus in the Stadio Olimpico. How are you boys feeling about this one, Greg? As a Roma supporter, how are you feeling about it?
Well, I think we've kind of touched on a lot of the points already, just going over, personnel and coaching and all that. So I'm not completely confident. But, I don't think they're going to play poorly. I need for them to do something great like beat Juve in this kind of a game for me to think that something may change. If they were to, let's say they were playing Empoli and they won 1-0 or even 2-0, I would say, okay, that's fine. They should do that. They haven't at times, but at least they did it today. But playing Juventus, I'm not anticipating another 3-2 thriller like the first matchup last year. I don't really know what to expect other than probably nothing good.
Adam?
I don't know, man. Juve have got a really good recent record against Roma. They won 2 and drawn 1 of the last 3. We had the massively controversial 3-2 game in October last year that the title race was over after that, to be perfectly honest. Roma never recovered from losing that game, and it opened up all the old psychological wounds that team have got and that coach has got, and it could probably do the same again. For Juve, this is where it's difficult for me because I'm sat here talking in person to 3 people I like, and on Twitter I can be the rational guy tweeting Fino alla fine, trusting the process, it'll be okay till the end. If Juve lose, I'm going to be pissed. I hate watching them lose. There's no escaping it. Winning is not the most important thing, as Bonipertis famously said. It is the only thing that matters with Juve, and I want them to win. But by the same token, I know that 3 days after the game, I will feel exactly the same way that I feel now. It's 2 games before an international break, and over that international break, Allegri's got 2 weeks to get the team together, to get them playing the way he wants to play. We have a general start back again after that with Chievo and then the Champions League game against Manchester City. He's got time to prepare. This game comes at an awkward time, and I really do hope they win it. But if they lose, you don't lose the title in August. It's a 9-month season. It's only the second game. Juve lost. Maximum you'll be behind the leaders is 6 points, and Juve have been 17 points better than every other team in that division for 2 straight seasons. So everything will be okay no matter what, but you know full well with a 2-week international break, if Juve don't win, it'll be 2 weeks of, they've lost the 3 best players, it's just like Allegri's second season at Milan, blah, blah. fucking blah, and it'll be really dull and tedious. And I'll spend 2 weeks on Twitter getting involved in stupid arguments with people I shouldn't be getting involved in. But
I'm going to try and instigate as many as possible.
Sam is right now creating 5 alt Twitter accounts
Oh,
that
mate.
you just troll you on repeat.
It is.
seriously, man, you don't need to. There's already people do that already. People
I know.
start. It's like a depth charge. You just drop it in, and it's like, no, it's just like Allegri in 2011. It's like, I'm done. It's no, it isn't. No, and you know why it's not? Because we ain't got Adriano Galliani going, well, it's 99.94% sure that we'll sign Alberto Aquilani, but this guy we might sign's got spiky hair.
Oh.
Shut up. It's nothing like that. Juve have clearly got a plan. They've clearly made good signings. Everything will be okay. The team, to me, has got a higher ceiling now than it did before the summer because every player who they've signed has got such a huge upside that it's not even funny. I mean, like the one player, well, the 2 players who maybe don't are a guy who's a perennial winner and scores 20 goals a season every season in Mandzukic, and a guy who's won the World Cup and helped Real Madrid win their 10th Champions League in Sami Khedira. They're the 2 players who you're relying on, and then you've got guys with a huge upside where you don't know where they could end up in. Quadrado, birthday boy's man Alexandro, Daniele Rugani, Sturaro, Kingsley Coman, who, if you to believe the stories, you've got German clubs knocking down Juve's daughters, paid 25 million to get him, and Juve going, oh, well, I don't really know. They obviously see something in him. I name drop alert. I'd interviewed Stefan Lichtsteiner last season, and he told me that Kingsley Coman is the only player he's trained with in his career who reminds him of guys like Eden Hazard and Paul Pogba. And that's in a nothing interview, in a throwaway comment when we're talking about something completely different. Lichtsteiner is making that comparison, and Lichtsteiner's not the guy to just say something for the sake of saying it. You know, he's a smart, intelligent dude who knows what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, he never reacts unnecessarily at all, does he, Lichtsteiner? He's always
only on the pitch. Only on the pitch. Only on the pitch. Off it.
Do you know, Sam? It's really funny you should say that, because I asked him exactly that about winding people up and being that guy. And you know what he said to me? He said that's his job.
Oh, I love that.
He looks around.
Looks
around. He sees Juve playing a little bit flat. He sees his winger coming towards him, and he knows full well that if he goes flying in, wipes the guy out, puts him into the advertising hoardings, looks at the crowd, goes like this, looks around at Bonucci and shouts at him, shouts at Chiellini, shouts at Buffon. Juventus Stadium noise levels go up by 10 decibels, 100 decibels, and the game is over from one tackle, one yellow card. Why would you not do it?
I love it.
I'm such a fan of that.
I love it.
Lichtsteiner got Juve through the Champions League against Celtic by doing exactly that. You can see it. The guy knows what he's doing, and it's so cold and calculated. He is not a hothead. He just plays one on TV.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. That's fantastic.
He's absolutely the guy that you hate. Like, you want to just throttle him if he's not on your team. But as soon as he puts on your shirt, it's like, God, I love him. I love him so much.
You know what it does is it really speaks to those that don't appreciate enough the psychology of the game, and how much attitude and morale and all those kinds of things feed into the performance. And kudos to him for recognizing when that is not in a strong enough position for his teammates, and that he's willing to do something to do it. And I don't know if it's ironic or coincidental or not, but I actually don't mind him as much playing for Juve as I did playing for Lazio. Obviously.
Greg, you're just going to get killed by Roma fans. This is the guy who used to play for Lazio, and now he plays for Juve, man.
Well, I'm saying I don't mind him as much now as I did for when he played for Lazio.
That makes sense, yeah. Now, going back to that Kingsley Coman,
I definitely take a lot of stances that are different from my brothers and sisters in the regard, but I don't really care.
That's why we have you on here.
The noise you can hear in the background is Julian blocking you.
Just mashing on his block button over and over. Yeah, so I think that'll probably just about do it for this week. Thank you guys for joining us again. Adam Digby, Greg Cimilluca, Sam Lewis. I am Aaron West of the Special Ones, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Ciao, ciao.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.